Our next speaker, Adam Childs. Adam is a creative director of BDG Architecture and Design, who are our fellow WPP agency, where he leads the innovative transformation of workspaces for many of the world's biggest brands, including Nike, Sony, Google, and Lego. His work focuses on what makes a business, its people, and its vision unique, and how that story can be brought to life through the built environment. So working with his talented team, many of his designs have been recognised at prestigious award ceremonies, including the current Best Fit Out of a Workplace, which was awarded by the British Council for Offices, which seemingly is the BAFTAs of office design. So there you go. So I think you're going to be able to draw the parallels for what we do with spatial design for events. So without further ado, can I welcome Adam to the stage? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Wow, I am absolutely exhausted. I don't know about you guys from watching that. I don't know. Right, it's going to be a little bit more low-key, but hello. My name's Adam Childs. I'm creative director at BDG, and for those of you who haven't heard of us, we are architects, we're designers, and we are creative thinkers. We specialize in the transformation of workplace. So, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. This is a presentation about workspace design, but I'm hoping that you guys can draw the parallels with this whole idea of thinking creatively and the ideas of today. You know, our audience is kind of the same. The challenges and the things that are in their minds are going to be kind of the same. So I think it hopefully will be really useful for you to see how we're handling these sort of similar challenges in our world and how you could apply that to yours. So one of our transformations is the building we're in, Rose Court. The other one is just across the road there with the blue crane, or the next one, which is the old Financial Times building. But when we first got involved in this building, it looked like this. It was grey, it was 1980s, it was old, it had low environmental performance, and to be honest, it was failing. There was no tenants. So it was up to us to think creatively and try and find a way to reimagine this building as a sort of a new, vibrant space that would then be a home for creative agencies as it is today. So we took some inspiration because whilst that was an unbelievably unremarkable building, what lay in the basement were the remains of the Rose Court Playhouse, which is a Shakespearean playhouse. I'll be honest, now it's sort of like a muddy puddle, but back in its heyday, it sort of looked like this. So when we reimagined the building, we're trying to make spaces with character, with personality, that feel like a destination, the kind of places you guys look for when you're picking events. So we thought this is the strongest story that this building has. So that Rose Court inspired the building turning red. And the footprint of that theatre, you can sort of see on the roof. We added 2 new roof levels. We created a sunken garden. We wanted to add prominence to the story and you know, celebrate the story of this space. So you can see that rose red. You can see the sunken courtyard. And hopefully, if you guys get to explore a little bit more of the building later, you'll see a little bit more. But that transformation also extends to the interiors, which looked a bit like a car park when we first got hold of them. And hopefully, you'll have come in through the reception. You'll have seen us transform those with warm materials to create a really inviting and kind of modern workspace. Up on the top level, you've got incredible amenities. This is a real sort of, it's a real example, I guess, of what a modern workplace can be with great spaces. And it's now home to 2,000 people, 13 different WPP agencies are based out of here. So, as I mentioned, I'm here to share some insights from Workspace, about the forces that are shaping the office of tomorrow. To put the office of tomorrow in some context, this term VUCA, I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a business term that was coined in the 1980s, but I really, really like it. It's used to describe the world that we live in right now. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Right? Change is happening at rapid pace. The old rules don't really apply. What are we going to do? This is so commonly felt in workplace right now, and it's really, really been heightened by one seismic event that happened that you guys may be familiar with, the lockdown. For workplace design, this was like just the biggest thing that could possibly happen. The entire workforce was separated from the office. We all were suddenly thrust into this world where that primary tool, the default that we used every day, was gone, and we were now trying to find ways to work without an office. All those barriers that were there about how do we manage people, how do we communicate, how do we keep culture, we had to find ways to make that work. Some of us struggled. I had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old during that lockdown. I don't know how many calls I took like this, but it was more than I care to remember. But people found struggles in different ways, whether or not they had the spaces that they needed to work effectively, or whether there was that work-life balance that we were finding tricky. But there were positives as well. You know, many of us thrived. We found ways to work. We found systems. We felt productive. Perhaps certainly no one really missed the commute unless you're strange. And what do you do with that commuting time? What new hobbies or skills or things did you do with it? You know, what was clear was things had changed. When we came out of that lockdown, you know, that idea that we just start going back to work, having worked effectively out of the office, that we would go back to work 5 days a week, 9 to 5, was just not going to happen. So since then, the world of work is really trying to find its new normal. And it's headline making, right? Because every time anyone does anything, people are looking around going, what are they doing? What's this? So Google were one of the first ones to kind of lay their cards on the table. During that lockdown, they said, hey, this is 2020. We're going to extend home working till 2021. And that's the moment where everyone's going, ooh, I certainly was going, is the office gone? Are people ever going to go back to this? But you fast forward to today, and Google now mandate that their staff need to be in 3 days a week. They use badge data, you know, for attendance as part of their reviews and part of their performance. So they've kind of shifted. Disney, they try to bring people back 4 days a week. And they talk about culture and creativity, and that is a big part of the reason that lots of people think the office is still relevant and important. So he put this big thing out. Did people like it? Not really. There was 2,300 people signed a petition from Disney saying, you know what, please don't force us back. You know, we've found new freedoms and new ways of working. HSBC, some of you will have heard this, very recently announced they're moving out of their massive tower in Canary Wharf to something much smaller in central London. And the reason that they're citing that they can do this is the rise in home working. They're saying, you know, this is what we're seeing. We've got lots of empty office space. We're just reacting to what people are telling us. But at the same time, the Telegraph are telling us that it's fallen apart, this idea of home working. So there's massive noise. There's lots of confusion out there. So I'm kind of here to, I guess, try and tell you what consistent things we are hearing. And that is, obviously, we are speaking to people who believe that the office still has a place in their business. Those who have decided to go totally remote, we're probably not hearing from them. But the people that do see the office as important, they've done a massive shift. The briefs that we are now getting focus on this one very simple idea, and it's a simple idea that you guys will be very aware of with what you do. That they now need to create spaces that employees want to spend time in. It's an incredibly simple idea, but you go on about 5-10 years, we were getting design briefs where they're saying, can you please just make us the most fantastic client experience? We want to come in, they're going to sit in the most expensive lounge chairs. They can use the client coffee machine. They'll go to the boardroom, which has the best view in the building, and they'll leave thinking, what a fantastic company. Behind the scenes, don't worry about us. We'll just need lots of desks and meeting rooms, and it'll be quite simple and easy. Then as things move forward a little bit further, people started to go, that war for talent really rose. People started going, okay, we need to take a look around. We're not hiring or we're not retaining the talent that we want. Perhaps we need to put a bit more effort into our employees and a little bit more focus. Now it's a case of, you know, if we don't improve our employee experience, they're just not going to show up. So I think for us, anyone who works in an office, this is an exciting time because we are now at the heart of everything that a business is looking to do with their office. We are not the afterthought. It's not the client first. It's now employee first. So this is where you get this whole world of trying to understand what people need in a workspace, why they would come to work, and the whole new workspace is being shaped around this sort of idea. So we can start with a very simple one, the coffee. You know, when we're thinking about the experience of coffee, it goes from the very simple sort of pouring your granular instant coffee into a paper mug, boiling a kettle, standing there waiting for it. That's at one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum, what we've just done for Dojo is build them like a 12-meter long purpose-built coffee island that sits in the middle of their space. You'll get your drink made to order by a barista who is a former champion of the Barista World Championships. That's at the other end of the spectrum. And that's the kind of microcosm of employee experience that we're looking at. So what kind of spaces are putting into this new office? Well, we're taking a lot of leaning from hospitality design. So an awful lot of bars and restaurants are going into these kind of spaces. They would have been seen as a real luxury before, but now they're kind of seen more as an essential. They work from morning through lunchtime and into the evening. They're spaces where people can connect, where they can celebrate. And these kind of social spaces are really where that kind of magic of company culture can really grow in an authentic way. And those friendships that a lot of us get up to come to work to see friends and see people, a lot of those friendships are really formed in these sorts of spaces. Another big influence on the world of work at the moment is residential design and bringing in some of that comfort from home into the office. So this is a long way from the kind of the stereotypical sort of chrome and grey and leather that you sort of associate, white ceiling tiles, that sort of stuff. It's warm, it's soft, it's inviting, and it's dressed with personality. You know, it looks like someone's lived, you know, someone cares about this space rather than just bought in a load of fresh furniture. And that's all about creating the kind of environments where we can relax, where we can be informal, and we can connect with people in a natural way. There's a huge emphasis from businesses on creating inclusive workspaces, spaces where the entire workforce has an equitable experience. A lot of thought going into different neurodiversities as well, not just giving them a room and saying, you know, neurodiverse room in here. It's about creating that environment that's full of choice and range from big, noisy, buzzy spaces to kind of quieter, calmer, maybe more dimly lit spaces, and everything in between, so that people can pick the kind of workspace that suits them. And then the wellness side of things, I'm continue to be super impressed by the kind of programs that different companies are putting on to support their staff. We obviously help with the rooms and the spaces, but really it's to support a whole program of events and activities that are there to design to show staff that the company cares about them. Outdoor space is now a massive want of people looking for offices. And I kind of liken it back to, I think in that lockdown, there was that big move where everyone was trying to buy houses or rent houses with gardens. They realized the value of getting outside. Anyone who was here this morning and broke out to the roof terrace, or will do later, you'll kind of get that feeling of getting out of technology, of the buzz and sort of 24-hour rush of the world, and just relaxing, calming down, and being in nature. This is now a huge thing that people are looking for. And then there's events, which is you guys. You know, events are a great way of getting people back into the office. You know, whether they're small-scale sort of pop-up things that are happening at lunchtime, up to giant, big events like this. You know, they're a real, because they're happening at a moment, at a specific place, at a specific time. You know, you're seeing a lot of work done by companies getting more sophisticated in how they program their events and their series of events over the weeks, and putting them purposely on days that people maybe wouldn't necessarily normally come in, to encourage people in, say, on a Friday or a Monday, to kind of get that flow of people through the studio. And then dogs. Yeah, I think you'll see a lot more dogs knocking around the office. Rose Court has certainly got a few. I've seen a little badge this morning. They get a little pass, a little ID, so you know who they are. But they're great, and they're about kind of everyone bringing their whole selves to work. And then finally, it's about the really experimental and high-tech spaces, you know, giving people the access to tools that they just don't have at home. So you come to work to see what you can do with some of the tools that you're going to hear about later. How far can you push them, and what can you achieve? I think is the kind of overall of those sort of trends. I think the cool thing is it's all about the psychology of people and trying to create experiences that when you can choose to work from anywhere, why do you choose to come into the office? And it's kind of really shining the spotlight on what people need and what people want. So I'm going to dive into a couple of trends in a slightly greater detail. So beyond just saying, hey, we've made this great space for you, you know, come on back. The other thing is that people are being empowered to shape their own spaces, to adapt them. So we've seen that in the furniture design for a long time. We've seen stackable chairs, we've seen flippable tables, we've seen stools with handles, we've all seen them. But now, if things aren't coming in flexible ways, then we as designers are putting wheels on them. We're putting wheels on everything we can, because we see the value in people being able to shape their space, and that's turning into, you know, how we actually create spaces and divide spaces they're getting bigger, and they're getting cleverer. And once you start bringing some of those adaptable things together, as you can see in this image, you're empowering the people that work in this space to shape their environment to suit the tasks that they have in that day. And then when you take that idea a little bit further, you get spaces like this that are happening in offices where, in terms of that surprise idea that was mentioned earlier, you may be familiar with this space, but the fact that it's changed since the last time you came sparks new ideas and new thoughts. The project I want to talk to you about is Dojo, where we did a lot of this. And this is the coffee bar. That is the award-winning barista in the center there. This is a space where the tables and chairs can be changed, where the tea point can be folded away, where drop-down screens come down. And it's a super flexible space. Every office that we're working on at the moment now wants one of these kind of flexible hearts, where a lot of the events happen. And what's interesting in this project is we took that adaptability beyond just kind of that big core central space. So we took it out into the desk spaces, some of the bits that were sort of more traditionally neglected, but now in this world of employee experience, every inch of the office needs to be thought about in a big way. So teams work on these banks of desks, and they have these touchdown tables that sit on the end that you've seen here, can roll away to create meeting spaces. And the teams that work in their spaces are encouraged to change them, to pull across, the dancing walls, to bring AV to their space. There's storage built in so they can adapt their environment. And then things start getting interesting when you move both of them away. You can connect them and create meeting spaces without having to build these rooms. You can have workshops in and around your space. The teams that work in the direct sort of relation to this can create this whole kit and these whole range of settings to suit what they're doing in that day. And it works beyond here. So once you've done this work and you've written on these boards, you can take those away, you can move them. These can slide all together. You can make one giant display, or you can separate them out and have kind of team huddles. You can take the work that you've created off into meeting rooms where we put bespoke rails. So you can bring base yourself and your projects off these boards and take them around with you. The whole office is kind of being considered as one adaptable kit. And I think when I look into the future of where this sort of trend is going, I think we see it hitting the built elements. So it's been happening in furniture for a long time, but that's being pushed as far as it can. And now it's starting to happen in the built elements of the office. I'm sure many of you have seen these sort of things popping up in your spaces. These kind of pre-built product rooms. They're great for Zoom calls and things like that. There's big, serious furniture brands pouring a lot of R&D money into these because they think these are going to be the future. You can pick them up, you can move them around. But they're getting bigger and they're getting more complicated. And you can see a world here where, you've got this setup. Perhaps you want to divide a room up so you can buy some more components, or perhaps you get some bolt-on, you need a new room and you can bolt it into the system. When you leave this space, you can demount it, take it with you, rebuild it in your new office. The whole kind of adaptable space is growing to the whole office. And where do I think this could end up? There's places like this. This is a brand new campus for Google in San Francisco. If you look at that space, it's like an entire beta space of modular elements, of rooms, of spaces that are designed to be changed over time, designed to be changed with a minimum amount of waste, with these kind of pieces. And if you combine that with the behavior that's being encouraged of teams working together and allowed to shape their own space, then you think you can change all these rooms as well. You can see how this is designed to look into the future with minimum kind of constraints. And lastly, I want to talk about the materials that we're building with. Okay, so there are new sustainable materials coming out all the time. Really exciting materials made from all different things. We're getting materials like these photovoltaic tiles. So rather than now having to sort of stick photovoltaics to your roof, you can build your roof out of it, which is exciting from a designer's point of view because it just looks much better. We're taking waste that's happening in the world, like these old fishing nets, and they're being turned into new materials like carpets, like the seats and the tabletops here. And then where people are taking this next is that they're really looking closely at their work streams and their waste streams, right? So, perhaps a simple company using a lot of coffee, back to my coffee analogy, coffee can be turned into surface. You can have that in your coffee bar. we work with a lot of construction companies and developers, so they are interested in how they can turn their construction waste from their sites into exciting new materials that they can then build their offices from. And the project that I wanted to talk about here, where we're using this trend, is Nike's headquarters. Although this could easily have been an image that explained the last concept about adaptability, because you can kind of see this as a space designed to be shaped with those minimum sort of constraints. But they were incredibly interested in what they were building their office out of. So, just take a simple space like this. The acoustic ceiling rafts, they're made out of recycled bottles. The plywood that you see on the left-hand side, that was taken from their old office, demounted carefully, repurposed in the new office. The flooring has a special Nike backing. The wall is clay. The grey wall is just clay render. And the star sort of piece in the center, that high bench, that is made of recycled Nike England football shirts. So we clearly got dumped out of another tournament somewhere, a big pile of those shirts. But we managed to find someone who would turn that into a surface for us and into a tabletop. That's what gives it that red color. In their library space, the top of the library table is made of a timber terrazzo, which is using trees that were felled by the council in the local area to sort of around the railway lines that were going on there, with waste streams from local sawmills. You make this new amazing material with a really nice story, again using like plywood from their previous office as a substrate. We ground up old Nike shoes and Nike trainers, the rubber, to create side tables. And Nike being Nike, they're incredibly good at communicating what they're doing in these spaces. So in the reception, we had this big moment where we were building this kind of London wall. We used real recycled London brick slips, but then we replaced the bricks within it with the innovative materials that we'd used throughout the space. And then with a really nice sort of gallery-like display, people are able to understand what their environment's built out of and the sustainable stories behind them. There's always a lot of thought and effort goes into these kind of the sustainable choices that people make, but I don't know that it's always brilliantly communicated. So I think that's quite a nice thing that I learned from working with them. And the other thing that they did was we designed these kind of little plaques that sat on the pieces of furniture on the wall. So say you're at that big high red table, there's a little moment which explains what the table's made out of, and a little QR code that helps you find out more. It's the kind of technology they're using in their sort of retail, but really, really innovative to use that in the workspace to, I guess, communicate what it is you've done and how you've done it. What's happening next in terms of materials? Well, I think there's going to be a bit of a move towards a slightly new aesthetic where that circular design thinking, so when a product is kind of born, its entire life cycle is kind of planned out and you figure out where all the bits are going. I think that's going to start becoming a new aesthetic that we'll get used to seeing, that you can see how these things are designed to come back apart and be recycled or remade or upcycled into something else. And then in terms of the actual materials that we'll be using, I'm seeing a lot of movement and energy towards biomaterials, so materials that don't have any man-made or synthetic chemicals in them, all using natural ingredients. And taking that one step further, we're seeing materials that are actually being grown. So this is a material that's made out of the root system of mushrooms. And they are able to kind of make these commercially in panels like this, and you're going to start finding them as your insulation within walls. That will be a kind of revolutionary alternative to those kind of traditional materials that we've been using. So as a bit of a wrap up from me, I guess the world of work is still in a state of sort of shock, I think, from COVID. It's sort of impossible to talk about it, and it will go down as that sort of seismic moment for workspace. But I think for us and anyone that works in an office, it's an exciting place to be now, because the employers, generally, their focus when they're making workspace has shifted from just, we'll expect people to turn up because that's what they've always done, to a space where they're now putting much, much more energy and focus into creating spaces that people like us, want to spend time in. They're giving us all these new facilities, these amazing spaces, and then they're empowering us to adapt them they're designing for change so that in this world of VUCA where change is inevitable, we're minimizing waste and we're building things from new, exciting materials. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. I'll be around later.
And it's really great that you've touched on that sort of use of the sustainable materials increasingly in obviously more permanent sort of building design. And wanted to just touch on the fact that obviously as event providers, quite often you're finding a lot high use of PVC, which is very difficult to recycle. What I'm pleased to say today, quite a lot, everything that you see around here is all from recycled material. So that the canvas prints are made from recycled material. The ones that you see on the windows, that's all PVC free as well, manufactured in the UK. You'll see things like the MPG logos, etc. That's highly sustainable, made from 95% recycled card, paper material. So again, we're really looking at different types of materials that we can use for events in response to what our clients are telling us. And so we look forward to having more discussions about those materials as time goes on. I'm also pleased to say that we started an initiative around tree planting, not ourselves, of course, I wasn't digging up, putting in trees, but we've assigned with a carbon offsetting sort of initiative, and we're looking to continue our efforts in that direction. And again, we'll be looking to have conversations with our clients about that. There is a little kind of mood board over there where you can sort of touch and feel some of the materials, and we'll be happy to obviously discuss that when we speak to you later on tonight.